It's lovely to see you as always. Thank you for being here. And listen, I appreciate you jumping on a quick call where we can fundamentally get your perspective on working with Astris Partners. For others who may consider working with us, I think it'd be great to hear your experience. So to kick us off, could you start by giving us a quick intro to yourself and your background, please?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Christopher Gaube. I'm the founder and CMO of Change Brand. And what I operate is a fractional chief marketing officer practice and a marketing consultancy. But my background is in all things brand marketing and management. So I spend the early days of my career, I did my MBA with a concentration in marketing and management information systems. And then I cut my teeth early in my career working on the marketing agency side of the business. So I worked with an experiential marketing agency, working with some top brands. And then I spent about a decade at one of the world's biggest and brightest brands, Nike. I did a little bit of everything in the marketing context and management context there. So I started off working in retail. I then worked in field marketing, experiential marketing, category marketing, account marketing, and grassroots marketing. And then ultimately moved into like a head of integrated marketing role in the business. So really had some amazing experiences at Nike. I ended up shifting gear and went to Raymour and Flanigan, a large US retailer in the home furnishing space. Was there for a couple of years as head of brand. And then I ended up shifting gears once again into the startup world and operated as the CMO of House of Athlete, operating in kind of the health and wellness sector as well as the sports media sector. And I started recognizing this unique shift in the marketplace where startup companies, tech companies, scale up companies were shifting to more of a fractional model to various aspects of the C-suite, including finance, legal, accounting, et cetera. And then ultimately build a whole business model around that for marketing. And for the last number of years, I've operated as a chief marketing officer in a fractional capacity of about 10 different businesses.
Thank you for sharing that, Chris. And I suppose for the purpose of this call, just so everyone's aware, whoever's watching, we're going to be referring to the client where we initially met as being in the health tech space, which you can't mention the exact name due to NDAs, etc. I think it's fair to say they had a complex, sophisticated offer. And therefore, I think the first good question would be, as their fractional CMO, what were you specifically looking to achieve when you brought Astris Partners on board?
Yeah, so for that particular company, I think Astris Partners came on at the perfect point in time where we were past the phase of launching the brand and driving kind of broad stroke awareness and education in the market. And we were moving into a phase where we were focused on hyper business growth and really trying to identify the right, highly qualified prospects that were in need of what we had to offer in the healthcare space and the health tech space to generate really high quality leads because of the complexity of the landscapes and just some of the nuances that exist in that industry. We were coming up with a variety of different ways to go about lead generation and nurture our leads. I think a good example of the work that Astris Partners does, I think we were actually in need of this service or this capability, and we were contacted by Kevin. It was like, in a weird way, a really great example of the efficacy of their program. I think for us, it was really all about shifting from more of a broad stroke definition of targeting our audience to a much more structured and focused attack, if you will, of reaching our audience with exactly what they were looking for.
I know in some of our previous conversations, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you've previously always appreciated and talked about how through some of our dialogue and onboarding, we've sometimes highlighted some blind spots for you as an experienced CMO, particularly around our specialty of outbound marketing. Can you walk us through what made our methodology different from what you'd experienced before?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, there's really one North Star metric as a CMO, and it's growth. Are we activating marketing activities and tactics and strategies that are aiding in the growth of the business? It's pretty cut and dry. Over the course of the last several years, as we've become much more performance driven as a discipline, I speak on behalf of marketing. I think the benefit is that marketing has become much more measured. The shortcoming is that, are we measuring the right things? And I think for me, I've always tried to really ground in alignment with business objectives and alignment with financial objectives of the business. And so I think there's a lot of noise that happens in marketing. Oftentimes marketing gets a bad rap. I can't tell you how many times in my career I've had sales leadership say, we make the money and you spend the money. So I try to spend the money like it's my own. And I think for tech companies, scale up companies, startup companies, resources are finite. So you have to be incredibly efficient with your spend and demonstrate business impact at various stages. I think coming across this new age philosophy towards outbound marketing came at a really great time for me as a CMO because I had always taken a more broad stroke approach towards customer communications and lead generation, had used really traditional email marketing, service providers, and kind of came to understand that I was going about it all wrong, not utilizing the right tools that could optimize for deliverability of those emails, not necessarily structuring the offers and the communications in a way that was actionable for my target audience. I just think there was like so many blind spots, and it was very humbling for me as a CMO. I learned a lot from Kevin and his team, and I attribute a lot of that to our time working together and thinking differently about how we get that message out there.
Very kind of you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. That's really great to hear. And I suppose going back to the offer, and as I said earlier, given the complexity of this particular health tech offer, we obviously had to test multiple approaches rather than, say, just standard value propositions. Like, we had to really come up and it was a very, very collaborative approach to do that. And that's what ended up helping us generate meetings with the ICPs of the Silicon Valley companies and all the other great things that we've done and we should continue to do. How would you describe that collaborative testing process, and what did it reveal to you specifically about message market fit?
So I think it all starts with the onboarding. I believe we had 3 really comprehensive workshops. Yeah. They weren't just like templated workshops. They were really bespoke, built for the needs and stage of our business. We went really, really deep. I mean, we went really deep into where we've been, our value proposition, all the work we had done around defining our personas and customer profiles, all the marketing activities and communications we had done up until that point. And I think that gave a really well-rounded perspective towards where we wanted to go and how we wanted to work together. And I think the way that you guys structured the onboarding process was definitely something that I felt like that really set us up for success. The misconception about messaging is that there's one perfect message. It's imperative that you are consistent in your message delivery. And it's kind of this iterative stage process where I think you need to spend a lot of time on the front end honing your message and defining its fit in the marketplace the same way you would with how you position a product. So I think you kind of taught us the discipline of, like, we've always thought of product market fit, but there's also like a message market fit and how you really fit that message to the objectives and needs of your target prospects and so on. So I think just taking always on iterative testing a methodology towards really landing the right message at the right time to the right audience was something we talk about as marketers. And it's like a really great theory, but it's much better when it's applied in practice. And I think the intention is oftentimes to activate the right message at the right time, the right audience, the right place, and so forth. The reality is that's very hard to do at scale. And so many marketing organizations take more of a templated approach, or I think we've called it a spray and pray type of approach. And that just doesn't work nowadays. Like, it's very ineffective. Your emails are going to end up in spam. You're not going to tailor the offer to the needs or objectives of that customer or prospect. So I think just the always on testing and message market fit exercises really kind of like helped us take what we already knew about our value proposition and fit it squarely in the needs of highly qualified leads.
Amazing. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, I think that's the other part that when we're speaking to potential partners, we're always sort of saying that actually the work that we're doing of all the testing and qualified conversations and, say, optimizing sales process, etc. But actually a byproduct of all of that is also to be able to share with the marketing team to say, hey, this is the message that's resonating in a outbound state. This is what people are showing interest in. This is what's grabbing their attention, not just at an organization level, but also across different personas, which is part of the whole sort of testing process. So I'm really happy you brought that up.
Can I just cover one more topic that I think is important?
Please, Chris.
It's very important in my practice as CMO, which is speed. And I think that is really difficult a lot of the times. I think the bigger the company, the more difficult it is, weirdly. But the speed to market is really challenging. And when you work in context, the customer or consumer or market conditions are ever changing, and they're changing really rapidly. And in order to be competitive, you have to actually be ahead of those conditions. You have to be ahead of those individuals. And that's why inbound marketing is really difficult at times, because it takes a long time to build long-term lifetime value, which I think is extremely important. I think a lot of that is part of the marketing practice upon landing a customer and keeping them. But I think the misconception is like around outbound marketing is like, you should just be doing like a bunch of Google and Facebook ads and these things that, have oftentimes marginal ROAS. And I think like this approach towards outbound marketing makes so much sense to me because it's fast. You can move at the pace of your market, which is frankly the hardest thing to do as a marketer is move at the pace of your market. especially if you work in tech or innovative spaces.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Very important. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So that's something that's very important that we say as well, the speed of, say, for companies to do this in-house and bring their own team and the technology, typically seeing 3 to 6 months before any sort of meaningful results, whereas we're typically seeing for our partners results as soon as 3 to 4 weeks, because we've done so much work with the onboarding and all the homework that we do. And then when it comes to the implementation and execution and that constant iteration, collaborative process that you talked about, we can hopefully bring in results a lot sooner, which generally tends to be the case. So last question, Chris, because I appreciate the time you put in, but I think this is just useful for everyone. As someone with your incredible background, Nike, and your extensive agency experience, what would you tell other marketing leaders or CEOs, founders, any leadership position to look for when choosing an outbound partner?
It's a great question. I think marketing agencies oftentimes get a bad rep. And I think one of the reasons why sometimes CMOs don't always have the best relationship with marketing agencies is because of the level that they're working at. And I think C-level leaders are such high standards of like kind of the experience and the expertise of the area of the individuals that they work with. Like my experience of working with Astris Partners is like, it's very executive level. It's not a junior marketing initiative. It's a very, very executive, highly strategic partnership. And that's kind of a value. And that's what you're looking for as a CEO or a CMO or a founder or whatnot. You guys are kind of the right partner. The other thing is just like focus, because I think sometimes within marketing, there's so many different opportunities that you can pursue. It doesn't mean that all of them are the right opportunities, but I would say generally speaking, the right opportunities are always going to be ones that are going to add value to your business. And identifying like really, really highly qualified leads is always going to be of value to your business. So to me, that's like pretty cut and dry. Like it makes a lot of sense to me to work with a partner like Astris Partners because, aiding in the immediate growth of the business. That's what we're in the business of. We want to be able to grow our audience. We want to be able to grow our brand, ultimately grow our revenue and profitability. And so I think if those are kind of key North Star objectives for you, working with someone like Astris Partners is a perfect fit.
Amazing. Chris, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate the candid conversation we've had here today.